There is a beach in Penang that has no road to it. You reach it by jungle trail, a 90-minute walk through primary forest where the canopy closes above the path and the light comes through in fragments, and the sounds of the city disappear completely within the first 10 minutes. Or you reach it by boat, a 15-minute ride from the national park jetty that deposits you directly onto the sand. The beach is called Pantai Kerachut. It is one of the most beautiful beaches in Malaysia. The sand is white. The water is the specific turquoise of a shallow bay protected by headlands on both sides. Behind the beach, primary forest rises steeply. There are no hotels, there is no bar, there is no infrastructure of any kind except a ranger station and a freshwater lake directly behind the beach where the Meromictic phenomenon, a rare geological condition where saltwater and freshwater exist in distinct, unmixed layers, occurs in one of only a handful of places in the world. And almost nobody in the tourist literature about Penang mentions it, because almost nobody in the tourist literature about Penang knows it exists. This is Penang National Park, the smallest national park in the world, and it contains the island's best-kept secret. Penang National Park, Taman Negara Pulau Penang, was gazetted in 2003 on the northwestern peninsula of Penang Island, encompassing 22.8 square kilometers of land and sea at the tip of the landmass that juts into the Strait of Malacca at the island's most remote corner. It is officially recognized as the smallest national park in the world by area. This fact is cited in tourist literature when it is cited at all as a curiosity, the tiniest park, a footnote to the world's great wilderness areas. What this framing entirely misses is that the density of natural significance within those 22 square kilometers is extraordinary. Penang National Park is not a small version of a great national park. It is a specific, irreplaceable collection of natural assets that exist at this level of preservation precisely because of the protection that national park status has maintained. The park is accessed from Teluk Bahang, a fishing village on the northwestern coast of Penang Island, approximately 20 kilometers from Georgetown. Grab or bus from the city takes about 40 minutes. The entrance is at the edge of the village where the road ends and the forest begins. Beyond the entrance, there are no roads. Everything inside the park is accessed by jungle trail or by boat. And this single fact, the absence of roads, is the reason the park is what it is. Without roads, there is no development. Without development, the forest and the beaches and the coastal ecosystem that have been here for thousands of years are still here. 1. The trails, what the jungle holds. The main trail to Pantai Kerachut, the park's most celebrated beach, takes approximately 90 minutes in each direction through primary forest that closes over the path within minutes of leaving the entrance. The trail is well marked, but genuinely forested. You are walking through something real, not a managed park path with signage every 50 meters. The sounds change as you go deeper. The air is cooler and more humid under the canopy. The light is different, green and filtered and moving with the canopy above. You are very quickly somewhere that feels completely unlike the Penang that most visitors experience. Wildlife along the trails is genuine rather than guaranteed. Long-tailed macaques are commonly encountered, bold, curious, and requiring the specific caution that any interaction with wild macaques requires. Dusky leaf monkeys, the small, elegant gray primates with their distinctive white eye rings, are often seen in the upper canopy. Flying lizards, forest birds, various species of squirrel. In the evening, at the beach headlands, monitor lizards move along the waterline with the unhurried purpose of animals that have no significant predators. The trail to Muka Head, the northernmost tip of the park and of Penang Island, leads to an active lighthouse, one of the oldest working lighthouses in Malaysia, built by the British colonial administration and still operational today. The coastal views from the headland around the lighthouse on a clear day extend to Langkawi to the north and to the Kedah mainland to the east. The sense of being at the literal edge of the island, the forest behind you, the strait ahead, the city of Penang entirely invisible and entirely irrelevant, is one of those moments of specific geographical clarity that travel occasionally produces and that is very difficult to manufacture artificially. 2. Pantai Kerachut,
the beach at the end of the trail. Pantai Kerachut is the reason most people make the effort to visit Penang National Park, and it is genuinely worth the effort. It is the kind of beach that the word beautiful was invented for. White sand, clear turquoise water protected by headlands on both sides, primary forest rising directly from the back of the beach with no development of any kind between the tree line and the water. The beach is a nesting site for olive Ridley sea turtles, one of the smaller sea turtle species, which come ashore to lay their eggs here between May and September each year. The park maintains a turtle hatchery adjacent to the beach, where eggs that might otherwise be at risk are protected until they hatch, and where released hatchlings make their first journey to the water under ranger supervision. The turtle nesting activity at Pantai Kerachut is genuine conservation work, rather than tourist entertainment. The nesting turtles are not disturbed, the beach closes during active nesting, and the hatchery program has contributed measurably to the survival of hatchlings that would otherwise have lower odds. If you are visiting outside nesting season, the beach is fully accessible, and the water is excellent for swimming and snorkeling. The coral reef offshore is accessible from the beach without a boat. Snorkeling gear can be rented at the park entrance or brought from Teluk Bahang, and the reef begins in shallow water close enough to the beach that even children can reach it comfortably. The fish life on the reef is varied, and the visibility on good days is extraordinary. The beach is also accessible by boat from the park jetty, a journey of about 15 minutes that is itself a spectacular way to approach the northwestern coast of the island, watching the developed coast give way to the forest-covered headlands of the park as you round the corner. The boat option is particularly useful on the return journey from a long day of hiking, when the legs are willing but the energy for a 90-minute trail walk back is negotiable. 3. The Meromictic Lake, the geological wonder nobody knows about. Directly behind Pantai Kerachut, separated from the sea by the narrow width of the beach itself, is a freshwater lake called Tasik Meromictic, and Tasik Meromictic contains one of the rarest natural phenomena in the world in one of the most unlikely locations you could imagine for it. A meromictic lake is a lake in which the water is permanently stratified into distinct layers that do not mix. Unlike ordinary lakes where wind action and temperature changes cause the water to turn over seasonally, in a meromictic lake, the layers remain separate, sometimes for centuries, sometimes indefinitely. The specific conditions required to produce this phenomenon are unusual enough that there are estimated to be only a few hundred meromictic lakes in the world. Tasik Meromictic at Pantai Kerachut is one of them, and one of only a handful in the entire tropical world. At Tasik Meromictic, the stratification is between fresh water from the surrounding forest catchment and salt water from the adjacent sea that percolates through the narrow beach separating the lake from the ocean. The fresh water sits on top, the salt water sits below. The boundary between them, the chemocline, is a zone of chemical transition that creates conditions in which different communities of organisms coexist at different depths in the same body of water. The upper layer supports the freshwater organisms typical of Malaysian lowland lakes. The lower layer contains marine organisms in a setting completely separated from the open sea. Both communities exist within meters of each other, permanently separated by a chemical boundary that has maintained itself for an unknown length of time. This is a significant piece of natural science. It is also the kind of thing that a visitor can encounter by simply walking off the beach and standing at the edge of the lake for 5 minutes. There is no dramatic visual spectacle. The meromictic phenomenon is invisible to the naked eye. But knowing what is happening in that quiet water 10 meters from the breaking waves of the Strait of Malacca is one of those pieces of knowledge that transforms an ordinary lake into something genuinely extraordinary. 4. The wildlife. What else lives in the park? The wildlife of Penang National Park is more diverse and more significant than the park's small size would suggest, and it represents one of the strongest arguments for its continued protection against the development pressure that has transformed most of the rest of the Penang coastline. The primate population is the most visible. Long-tailed macaques inhabit the park in significant numbers and are commonly encountered along the trails and on the beaches. They are wild animals and should be treated as such. Do not feed them. Do not approach them at close range without care, and keep food secured in your pack because macaques are both intelligent and opportunistic, and a moment's inattention is sufficient for them to access an unguarded bag. Dusky leaf monkeys are less bold but more elegant, often visible in the upper canopy in the early morning when they are most active. The bird life is exceptional for a coastal forest of this size. The park sits on the migration routes that run along the western coast of the Malay Peninsula, and during migration seasons, it serves as a stopover site for species traveling between their northern and southern ranges. The resident species include multiple species of hornbill, various kingfishers, raptors, including the Brahminy kite, whose distinctive chestnut and white plumage is unmistakable overhead, and dozens of forest specialists that cannot be found in the urban and agricultural landscape that covers most of the rest of the island. The Bat Cave, reachable on a side trail from the main Kerachut Trail, is home to a colony of cave-dwelling bats whose nightly emergence in the early evening is one of the smaller but more charming wildlife spectacles the park offers. The colony is not on the scale of Deer Cave in Mulu, but watching several thousand bats emerge from a forest cave at dusk, spiraling upward into the last light before dispersing to feed above the canopy, is one of the experiences that rewards the visitor who times their trail walk to arrive at dusk rather than at the more conventionally convenient midday. The marine ecosystem within the park's protected waters is one of the most significant along the northwestern Penang coast. The coral reefs that fringe the headlands have been protected from anchoring and trawling in a way that has allowed them to maintain a health increasingly rare in Malaysia's coastal waters. Every visible element of the park's marine biodiversity is there because the protection is real and has been maintained. 5. The mangroves, what the park quietly protects. Penang National Park contains one of the few remaining intact mangrove systems on Penang Island. This fact is easily overlooked by visitors who associate mangroves with difficult access and mosquitoes rather than with ecological value. It is a fact worth understanding. Mangrove forests are among the most productive and most ecologically significant coastal ecosystems in the tropical world. They provide nursery habitat for the fish and crustaceans that support the fishing industry of the surrounding coast. They filter the water flowing from land to sea, removing nutrients and pollutants that would otherwise damage the coral reefs offshore. They stabilize the coastline against erosion. They store carbon at rates that rival tropical rainforest. And they protect the coastline against storm surge and flooding in ways that become more significant with every passing year. Penang's coastline has lost most of its mangrove cover over the past century. The mangrove system within the national park is one of the last substantial remnants on the island, and its continued existence within a protected area is one of the park's most practically significant conservation achievements, not as a tourist attraction, but as functioning ecological infrastructure that the surrounding coastline depends on. The most immediate reason this matters to a visitor is simple. The water off Penang National Park's beaches is cleaner and the marine life more diverse than at any other accessible beach on the island. The specific quality of swimming and snorkeling available at Pantai Kerachut is a direct product of the ecological health maintained by the park's protection of its mangroves, reefs, and coastal waters. Every mangrove tree in the park is contributing to the clarity of the water you are snorkeling in.
6. How to do it properly. Penang National Park is easy to visit, but rewards the visitor who prepares properly. Let me give you the practical details that make the difference between a good visit and a great one. Getting there is straightforward. From Georgetown, take a Grab or the Rapid Penang bus to Teluk Pahang. The journey takes 30 to 45 minutes depending on traffic. The park entrance and registration point is at the end of the road in Teluk Pahang, where the paved surface ends and the forest begins. Registration is required and a small fee is charged for foreign visitors. Register and pay before going further. The rangers at the entrance know the current conditions of the trails and the beaches and are worth a conversation before you head in. Leave early. This is the single most important practical advice for Penang National Park. The trail to Pantai Kerachut takes 90 minutes each way, plus time at the beach. If you leave the entrance after 9 in the morning on a hot day, you will be hiking back in the full heat of the afternoon.
Leaving at 7 means you arrive at the beach in the cool of the morning, have it largely to yourself for the first hour, and are walking back while the air is still manageable. Bring more water than you think you need. The trail is shaded, but the humidity is genuine and the heat builds. 2 liters per person minimum for the full Kerachut trail round trip. Snacks are advisable. There is no food inside the park. Sunscreen for the beach, a change of dry clothes if you plan to swim. Proper footwear, the trail is well maintained, but it is a real forest trail, not a paved path, and shoes or trail runners perform dramatically better than sandals. The boat option is available from the park jetty adjacent to the entrance. Water taxis can be hired to take you directly to Pantai Kerachut. Many visitors choose to walk in and take the boat back, which is probably the optimal combination for a full-day visit. You see the forest on the way in and the coastline on the way out, and you arrive back at Teluk Bahang with legs that still work. Stay for the evening if you can. The light in the park in the late afternoon is extraordinary. The angle of the sun through the forest canopy, the quality of the water at the beach in the golden hour, the sounds of the forest shifting register as the day moves toward evening. A picnic on the beach at Pantai Kerachut as the light goes is one of the great simple pleasures available in Penang. It costs nothing beyond the effort of getting there early and staying late. Penang National Park is 22.8 square kilometers of protected land at the end of a city island that most visitors spend entirely in the heritage zone and the hawker stalls. Most Penang visitors never go. Many Penang residents have never been. What is in those 22 square kilometers is worth going for. The trail through primary forest, the beach at the end of it, the Meromictic lake behind the beach where freshwater and saltwater exist in permanent separation 10 meters from the open sea, the olive Ridley turtles that come ashore to nest, the dusky leaf monkeys in the morning canopy, the coral reef accessible from snorkel from the sand, the Olu Mukahead lighthouse at the island's tip, the specific, irreplaceable quality of a natural place that exists in its current form because someone decided to protect it rather than develop it into something else entirely. That decision was made in 2003 and it is still being maintained. The park it protects is one of the best arguments for the kind of protection that produces this outcome rather than the kind of development that would have produced something else entirely. Go to the park, walk the trail, swim at Kerachut, read about the Meromictic lake before you get there, and stand at its edge knowing what is happening in the water. Come back to the city in the evening with the specific peace of someone who has spent a day in a place that was not prepared for their visit and was better for it. If this put Penang National Park on your itinerary, hit the like button, subscribe for more Penang and Malaysia content that goes beyond the obvious, and drop a comment below. Have you been? What was the moment that got you? I read everything. See you in the next one.